Oh, really?
No, it's
Huh.
189.
Maybe we need to stick with the director format. All right. I believe we are live. If you are watching, we just need to confirm that it's live here before we go into our topics.
We are live.
Nice.
All right.
You can
It's
see
funny.
us.
I've got us pulled up here and I don't see.
So, yep, we are live. We'll do it
Okay.
live. Forget it.
All right. So then actually, I do need, well, do you, or will one of you keep it live on your phone?
Yeah,
and
of course.
Keep an eye on chat.
Of course.
Actually, why do I say that? I can do it too. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning, or if you're watching us after we've recorded this, it is 9 a.m. Eastern time, but with what we had go on in college football yesterday and the schedule that we have with the NFL today, and hey, we even have the USFL right around the corner, we thought it'd be a good time to try something a little different and just go with just a live format, just a discussion format, which is normally not what we do on the tournament podcast. And I apologize. I'm looking down here because I just want to pull up our YouTube channel on my phone to keep track of chat. So bear with me just a second. My apologies. And then when we get ready here, I think we'll jump right into college football talk. Somebody erased my YouTube app on my phone.
Oh, no.
Why would they do that?
Off camera.
I've got so many apps on here. I have trouble.
Yep.
Sternly.
Somebody's trying to sabotage us.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, never mind.
All right. Make sure the volume is off.
This is the perfect day here. It's November 28th, a Sunday, very crisp weather, very football-like. So what a perfect morning for us to do our first live sports podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what we this is our wheelhouse. This is what we prefer to do, is have our channel be more focused on sports and entertainment. We have built a very wonderful and large audience off of something not related to sports. It's actually music related, which is still our genre in terms of sports and entertainment. But anyway, we do enjoy sports. So here we go. Let's go ahead and jump into some college football talk. And actually, before we went live, Mike mentioned something of what he assumed. And actually, let's just start with that. What did you say, Mike?
I said my assumption is that the top four for the playoff will remain, well, I guess 3/4 of that playoff will remain intact as far as Georgia, Alabama, and Cincinnati, with the only change being Michigan being swapped in there for Ohio State, obviously considering the result of yesterday's big game. But it sounds like you disagree with that assessment.
I unfortunately do disagree, and I try to look at all this and be as unbiased as possible. And if you can, or as you notice behind me, you see a lot of red and black, from the clock on the wall to the little poster thingy that I keep on the closet door back there. I am a Cincinnati guy. Heck, my chair's even red and black, but I have a feeling that Oklahoma State, with a big win last night over Oklahoma, they now move into the Big 12 championship game. I think we're going to see Tuesday, when they unveil the new results, that will be Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Alabama 3, Oklahoma State 4, unfortunately. And UC will then be 5. That's just my gut feeling. I think UC, the score didn't indicate. I watched the entire game. Didn't look very good against East Carolina. That's just not going to bode well for you. Their strength of schedule overall is not great, which I don't blame them. They can't do anything about being in the American Athletic. All they can do is win games. Yep. These smaller schools, these smaller conference schools, the non-Power 5 schools, if you will, pretty much have to go undefeated to even get a chance into the playoff. Where the big schools, the Georgias, Alabamas, Ohio State, etc., typically Clemson, can still lose a game and get in. To me, when it's only 4, you should be disqualified with 2 losses. 1, if your schedule's strong enough, you should still be able to get in. Cincinnati, and their next game is Houston, who I think is currently ranked 24, at least in the AP. I think that's the AP. They're ranked 24. It's either in the college football playoff rankings or the AP. Either they might be the same. I just don't know if that's going to be enough to bolster them. With Oklahoma State, assuming they're going to take UC's spot, Oklahoma State plays Baylor, who Baylor is number 8. So Oklahoma State, at least as of this week, was 7. Baylor was 8. They both won. They're going to meet in the Big 12 championship game. Back-to-back wins. If Oklahoma State were to do it over Oklahoma and then Baylor, I just don't know how you leave them out. There's certainly scenarios, many scenarios, but Georgia obviously is a lock. So there's one spot that's locked in. Alabama, I'm assuming in Alabama, we get, or at least I do, kind of spoiled at how good they typically are. The Iron Bowl is a big game, but this is a very mediocre year for Auburn, and Auburn should have beat them. They're on a backup quarterback. The kid looked like he broke his foot in the third quarter. I don't think, and if anybody watching could correct me, that they even had another quarterback. So I think this kid was all they had. He was out there. He couldn't even hardly walk. So they were one-dimensional. All they could do is run the ball, and Alabama still barely beat them.
And 4 OTs, I believe, wasn't it?
So that's why I dropped Alabama down 1. They just did not look good. But yeah, so that are my thoughts. Marty, do you have anything you want to jump in with?
I was going to say those SP plus rankings, which kind of have, the opponents that you played in mind. It's not a strength of schedule. And I'm not exactly 100% sure how they do that, but the SP plus rankings had obviously still Georgia 1, had Cincinnati 2, Alabama 3, Michigan at 4. So, yeah, it's tough because at the beginning of the year when Cincinnati was at Indiana, Indiana was a top 20 team, I believe, at that time. They've obviously fallen off heavily, but that was a big road win. You've got obviously the biggest win in Cincinnati college football history at Notre Dame. If they beat Houston, like you said, who's also top, 25, how in the world can they be leapfrogged? I know they can, but
they will.
Oh my gosh.
Sadly.
And it looks like, looking at the AP, that Houston's actually 19 right now in the AP. So it must be the other poll where they're 24th. So yeah, in the AP, they are currently 19. So that would be a big win. But yeah, that strength of schedule I know is not even top, at least it wasn't top 100. So I don't know if a win over Houston would change that at all, but
yeah, and that's where you run into problems when you're the little school. So basically, when they have I assume they're expanding to 12 teams. I think that is ridiculous and way too much. When they started this thing with 4, my initial thought was you got to make it at least 6 or 8. 4 is stupid. But you don't want to water it down. Jiminy Christmas. I don't think 8 would be watering it down. I thought 6, because then you would reward 1 and 2 with a bye in the first round, and that would be incentive. But 12, now you talk about watering it down with 6, you're going to 12. It doesn't make any sense to me. At that time, UC will be in the Big 12. It won't be the same Big 12, but, I think it's still going to be a heck of a conference, a heck of an upgrade for Cincinnati. But right now, what you're telling Cincinnati and all these other smaller schools, if you will, in terms of football, like their schedule, they had their 4 non-conference games this year. They always have Miami of Ohio, which is a tradition. I think this year they played Austin Peay. Then it was Indiana, Notre Dame. That basically, you got to cancel the Miami tradition. That game's got to be gone unless Miami can do something to start, becoming like a MAC powerhouse, which probably isn't going to happen, unfortunately, for Miami of Ohio fans. And, they've got to play either middle of the road SEC and Big 10, Big 12 schools. And that's got to be the schedule every year. it's easier said than done. But anyway, I mean, I could go off on a tangent. I feel bad for Cincinnati. Obviously, as a Cincinnati Bearcat fan, I'd love to see them in. I just don't see it. I have a feeling Oklahoma State's going to jump them at 4. If Alabama stays 2, I also think that's criminal. I just think Michigan had a huge win.
Yeah.
And Ohio State is, I mean, heck, Ohio State was just 2. So it would seem to me that Michigan at 5, the jump to 2 isn't very, isn't unreasonable. So Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Alabama 3, Oklahoma State 4 is my prediction.
Well, the other thing I was going to throw in is next week, obviously we have the SEC championship, Alabama and Georgia. If Georgia beats Alabama, which, obviously it looks like they should, then Alabama's going to be out. So, could Cincinnati be 3 and, one of the Big 12 teams in there 4? I just think, again, not to beat a dead horse, but if UC beats another top 25 team here in the championship game, and if Alabama loses, they've got to be out. I mean, come on. So
yeah, now there certainly are scenarios. That's exactly it.
If Alabama wins that game, it's going to be big trouble, I think.
Well, yeah. So Georgia, I just can't imagine them not winning that game. I just will be stunned, which is funny because normally you'd think it's the reverse. Or man, it's going to be a heck of a game. Georgia's defense, I mean, they're just so good. So yes, Alabama, that's a very good point. With 2 losses next week, again, assuming they lose to Georgia, they should be out at that point.
Gotta be. Yep.
So then at that point, you would have, again, if Michigan, it's Iowa, they're playing Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. Assuming Michigan wins that, you're going to have Georgia and Michigan still 1-2, at least at my prediction. Yeah, at that point, then you could have, that would be interesting. You'd have Oklahoma State 3, and UC could work their way back to 4 if Georgia does beat Alabama. And also you have, I just mentioned the Michigan game. If Iowa beats Michigan, then there is no Big Ten team in the tournament. I think that would be a way for UC to work their way back into number 4. And let me mention this real quick. I don't know if you probably don't watch College Game Day and that like I do. And I'm a big fan of that show. Me and my sons usually watch it almost every Saturday before the games start. And Lee Corso, God bless him. I don't know how old Lee Corso is, but multiple weeks in a row, Lee has mentioned that he thinks Notre Dame should jump over UC and be in. And Notre Dame should be in and UC should be out. And everybody on the panel thinks he's crazy. And Lee, I think you're crazy too. All due respect. If you're watching this, Lee, which I doubt, there's just no way. It's not that UC beat Notre Dame on a walk-off field goal at Nippert. They went to Notre Dame, and I should know this, but I think beat them by 13 or something like that. I mean, it was double digits. So that is absurd. If UC remains undefeated and Notre Dame is going to have 1 loss because they beat Stanford. So yeah, and their season is done. They don't play in a championship game. There's no scenario where Notre Dame gets in there. There's no. They beat a 3-8 Stanford team. No way. So Notre Dame is out. A couple teams have. Baylor has 2 losses. So if they beat Oklahoma State in the championship game, another route for Cincinnati, because then Oklahoma State's out with 2 losses. Oklahoma's not going to get in. Ole Miss is done now with 2 losses. So really it's down to Oklahoma State, Michigan, Cincinnati, Alabama, Georgia. There's
pretty much. Yeah.
So you got 5 teams, and there are a bunch of scenarios going on here. Baylor certainly can beat Oklahoma State, as I mentioned, and I think Georgia will beat Alabama and knock them out. So Cincinnati may still be in, but anyway, it certainly was a fun Saturday in college football. And Cincinnati too. If you want to get in, you need to look a little better. A lot of dumb mistakes and stuff, and just not. I think Desmond Ritter threw a couple interceptions.
He threw one in the red zone.
You can't do that against East Carolina. I mean,
in the
you just
fourth
can't
quarter.
do it.
And we all know, like you just said, you have to look better, style points, as they say. But I mean, really, in any sport, a win is a win. I don't care if you win by 1 point, a safety or something. You've got the win. To me, again, Cincinnati obviously traditionally is not on the level of any of the teams in the top 4 or 5. Let's be honest. But to a team that's 12-0 to all of a sudden lose, a spot or two again is just, to me, it's asinine. But the committees definitely, it's about money too. Let's not
Oh my
forget to throw
gosh.
that in.
Yeah.
The different bowls have a lot more say than people think, because these bowls are big multi-million dollar contracts. So they
Yeah.
have a say too, more than I
I
think
mean,
we
who would you
know.
rather have in your bowl? Would you rather have Cincinnati or Ohio State in your
Well,
bowl?
yeah,
Well, you want
exactly.
Ohio State if you want the money. So you'd find a
Exactly.
way to make it work.
Yep. Which, it's a shame. It's college athletics, but it's a huge money-making business. Huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of scenarios, who knows what is going to happen. I have a feeling, and we'll see if I'm right come Tuesday, that Cincinnati is out for the time being. Good news is, as a Cincinnati fan, they've got many options to work themselves back in. So then really at this point, there's only 5 teams that have any way to work themselves in or out of it. So basically, if just Baylor can beat Oklahoma State and Georgia can beat, Alabama, UC should be in. If UC wins, they've got to beat Houston. So that would be the real kick in the pants if Cincinnati would lose to Houston last game of the season. That would be heartbreaking. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, do we want to move on from college football, or did anybody else have anything they wanted to? We spent about 20 minutes on college football here.
No, just, I mean, we barely touched on it, but the 12-team playoff system, which I'm not sure when is that supposed to take effect.
Yeah, let's take a look here.
I know it was just approved this year.
Yeah, I guess it is going to be the 2024-2025 season.
And from what I understand is, the kind of weird thing though too is, I know obviously 4 teams are going to get a bye. The top 4 will get a bye.
Yeah.
And then you have, the other 8 teams obviously going. The first round games are supposed to be at the campuses of the teams. And then after that, I think they're all bowl games, which again, that's when it comes to, is there still going to be this, political, political type of a situation where the different bowls want, no, we want these teams. I mean, the Rose Bowl is usually the Pac-10 against, who is it?
It's the Pac-12 Big Ten.
I thought it was, yeah.
Like, USC, Ohio State, or Oregon, Penn State, something of that.
So would they be willing to, if none of those teams are in there from those conferences in that slot, what happens?
Well, it depends on the 2 teams that are in there and the fan base and the money that they bring. But just touch on that playoff. First off, you agreed to it. Why they're pushing it off to 2024, 2025 is beyond me. I don't like 12. I think 6 or 8 would, and I'd probably lean more towards 8 at this point. I do like teams that have, like a Georgia this year getting a bye, because they've deserved it. They've been a dominant team all year. So if we had the 12, they would get a bye. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the college football playoff in the years to come.
I like the 12, and I'll tell you why, because if you're talking about the top 12 teams, it should be the top 10 teams, which, how can you not say, oh, that's awesome, the top 10 teams out of whatever it is, 120, 30. And then you have 2 teams that never would have made it, in whatever smaller conference. I think it's neat. I mean, definitely, I think the top 4 teams would deserve a bye, rightfully so. I think it's exciting. You don't want it to be watered down, but look at March Madness for basketball. I mean, now what is it, 68 or 72? Because they keep adding those play-in games.
I think it's still 68. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's still the greatest sports spectacle, in my opinion. And there were a lot of people before our time when it was 32, or even before that, it was less.
Well, I think it started with 16.
Yeah.
But why is it the greatest spectacle in sports? And I say this all the time too. It's because of Cinderella.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't get Cinderella with this stupid 4-team playoff in college football. Maybe you will get it with 12. So that could be a benefit, but people love it. I can only speak for myself when I say people love it. I assume most people are like me, unless you live in one of these states or you're a fan of one of these teams. You're sick of seeing every year the playoff is Notre Dame, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. Every year it's the same 4 teams repackaged, Oklahoma. We want to see variety now. And I thought this year the ultimate would be Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma State, and Cincinnati. Oh, well, there's not the big brand power, especially with Cincinnati. Nobody's going to see. Yeah, they are going to want to see that. They should have beat Georgia last year.
Yep.
I think Georgia's better this year, but
so
it's Cinderella. Just this little Cincinnati team, that at that point would be 12-0. Do they even have or 13-0 at that point? Would they even have a shot against Georgia? People are going to tune in to see that. It's Cinderella. So, yeah. I mean, I'm one for that, like in years past, the BYU's, Coastal Carolina, to have a shot. Maybe with 12, they could.
Exactly.
That is the benefit of 12. That's for sure. But that's what it's missing. It's the same big brand teams every year. If it could, like in the first, what was the first year of the playoff? And I don't remember when it was, so I'm not gonna, guess, but I remember it was, when I can't remember the team. Was it TCU? I think it was Texas Christian.
Oh, yep.
And I think starting with the very first unveiling, Texas Christian was in the Final Four. I call it the Final Four college football playoff every unveiling. And then the very last one, you're like, okay, well, it's this, this, and this. And obviously one of those being Texas Christian. Nope. They just pulled them out the last week. Why? And they won. I mean, it's not like they lost. So they won their game. And I think they won big. And they pulled them out anyways. You talk about style points. They destroyed whoever they played. Nope. I don't know who got in instead. I could look it up. But yeah, so you just never know. Oh, my apologies.
Well, and I'll throw out just something kind of interesting, since we're talking about the 12-team format. I had seen where they said based on this 12-team format for last year, it would have been the 4 byes would have been Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma. Then for the quote unquote play-in games, you would have had number 5 Notre Dame against Coastal Carolina, number 6 Texas A&M against Indiana, number 7 Florida against number 10 Iowa State, and number 8 Cincinnati against number 9 Georgia, which did happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It just, when you look at it in that way, to me, it is exciting. Like you said, I mean, you've got Indiana in there, or, Iowa State, Cincinnati advancing, I think would have been neat. It just, like you said, the Cinderella does play a big, big importance in sports. Gets people excited.
Oh, it absolutely does. And I'm assuming with the 12, when they go to 12 teams, that means that all conference champions would go regardless of record. I mean, I guess that's kind of what they're thinking. Well, all conference champions, the Power 5.
I was going to say, yes,
would go.
A certain number of those conferences. Yep, definitely.
And I still think there should be an automatic bid for the number 1 non-Power 5 team. Like this year would be Cincinnati. In years past, it was UCF. And let's not forget the UCF guys who went undefeated for 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Talk about style points. They scored 50 points a game seemingly, and they didn't even get close to the playoff. So
yep,
it's all money. It's very disheartening.
Yeah, and I mean,
me check my
again,
phone
we're
here.
Cincinnati guys. So last year, Cincinnati undefeated as well and was looked over.
Yep.
They didn't have the big style wins last year that they have this year, namely the Notre Dame game, but still.
And the only reason that UC is even in the conversation, let's be honest, is that Notre Dame
Oh,
game. So luckily that happened to be scheduled at the right time. And kudos to Notre Dame for playing Cincinnati.
Yep.
Respect to Brian Kelly, because UC did a lot for Brian Kelly. He did a lot for UC. It's nice he mentioned in the press conference and people got on him that he thought it was nice to give Cincinnati an opportunity to play Notre Dame. Well, I thought that was cool. I knew exactly what he was saying, and it is. I mean, they did a lot for him. So he was giving back. I mean, Notre Dame's brand is up here. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I got this whole room filled with Cincinnati stuff. Cincinnati is way down here.
Definitely.
Picking it up lately, but so yeah, kudos to Brian Kelly.
And then a final Cincinnati tidbit. I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, they landed a 4-star defensive end.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're slowly getting some 4 stars here and there.
He's the highest ranked defensive player that they've ever recruited. So that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's
very
a
good for them. And they should.
Beast.
Yeah, the way they've been playing, they absolutely should. Undefeated the last 2 seasons. The only loss was to Georgia, barely by that walk-off field goal. So,
yep.
God, I remember that field goal like it was yesterday. That was hard. I actually got down on my knees on the floor and was watching the TV, praying that it didn't go in. And
we could go into clock management and stuff talking about that game, but that's in the past.
Yeah, we live in Cincinnati here, folks.
Yeah.
We know a lot about that.
Oh yeah,
we had Marvin Lewis for a long time too with the Bengals.
Yeah, we did.
Maybe that is
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say maybe they'll get a redo this year. January? Get to see UC versus Georgia.
Yeah, and let's be realistic here. I don't think they want to redo with Georgia, not this Georgia team, but I'd still watch it. And
oh yeah,
I think a lot of people would as well. It'd be a fun game, again, a Cinderella story. So speaking of Marvin Lewis and the Bengals, maybe let's transition over to some NFL here since it is Sunday. I'll bring up a few topics. We can just kind of let this go wherever. Anybody watching, if you have any questions or anything that you want to throw in, or opinions, certainly, go ahead and feel free to do that. We'll answer what we can, or we'll try. Again, as I think I did the ad for this show, we're just 3 regular guys talking football. So I think what we have is just we have a working man's knowledge. So we'd be one of your coworkers that you would talk to on Monday about football. That's kind of what we know. So with NFL here, let's go ahead and, well, you know what? This is always a big topic. Let's just start with this, and this will go off into other things here. We have some quarterback situations going into this offseason. And obviously being an AFC North guy with the Bengals, I'm always interested in the Baker Mayfield conversation. When they drafted him, I thought they would be crazy not to take him number 1. And I thought he was a clear number 1, not necessarily because of his skill, which was tremendous at Oklahoma, but his leadership ability. He seemed like just a natural leader. He could always rally the guys. And I mean, just like we have now with Joe Burrow, he's just natural at it. But all these years later now, Baker is interesting in terms of they're either going to have to re-sign him, I assume, for big money, which then hinders the rest of the team and what you can do, or they got to just cut him loose and go in a totally different direction. Which are you going to find somebody better than Baker Mayfield? And this year's quarterback, class coming out is not the best. I'll just put it that way. Certainly not as good as it's been the last few years, without doubt. So, man, what do you think they should do with Baker Mayfield? Do either one of you guys have an opinion on that?
I mean, well, Baker Mayfield has had kind of an up and down start to his young career. I mean, last year he was phenomenal. He struggled this year. He's obviously got the injuries and everything. But you have to look at the the real important thing in sports, especially NFL, is the playoffs. When we talk about Marvin Lewis, can you get your team to the playoffs, and can you win at least one playoff game? Baker Mayfield has not been real swift in the playoffs. So that right there, to me, would play a role in my decision. Am I going to sign him, long term? Now, I'm not saying, to cut him or, not re-sign him, because this Cleveland team, I'm not a fan, but they've really gelled. I mean, they're coming together. Obviously, I think Nick Chubb is one of the main reasons. With Nick Chubb,
they get Kareem Hunt back today too. So
yeah.
They had a dragon, if you will, is back.
I mean, that's a dynamo backfield right there. So, that plays a big part. I mean, you take away those guys and Mayfield's going to have a harder time. Any team take away, if you've got a great running game, take that away, puts a lot more pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah. And I always say, if it wasn't for the Baker Mayfield, for whatever reason, carves the Bengals up like a Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah. He does.
If it wasn't for the Bengals, even last year, both games, he had enormous games. This year, the only game they've had so far, they do play again the last game of the season. He torched the Bengals. But let me do this. I am a subscriber to Pro Football Focus. So let's run down PFF to this point in the season, the quarterback rankings. So the number one quarterback in terms of the PFF algorithm, if you will, Tom Brady. No shock. Number two is a shock to me, Kirk Cousins. 3 is Justin Herbert. Mac Jones 4, Kyler Murray 5. Mac Jones, I mean, heck, what a rookie season that guy's having.
Yeah.
It's, we've had all the Jamar Chase talk. He's got the rookie of the year locked up. Well, it could be Mac Jones. He might have it locked up.
Yeah.
So then starting from 6 is where it gets kind of interesting. You have Dak Prescott, Ryan Tannehill, our Joe Burrow is 8. Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, that's the top 10. I haven't mentioned Baker yet. That's why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Number 11, we start with Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Teddy Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson is 15. Matthew Stafford is 16, Russell Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, and Tua Tagovailoa for Miami back-to-back. Jameis Winston is 20th. I still haven't mentioned Baker.
Wow.
Geno Smith for Seattle, the backup. Patrick Mahomes, not having his best year, is 22. Jimmy Garoppolo, Daniel Jones, and the top 25 is rounded out with Daniel Jones.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Yes. Or I'm sorry, Daniel Jones, the top 25 is rounded out with Carson Wentz. Number 26, Baker Mayfield. So it's just, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, he's having a good year. I mean,
well, his stats are kind of, and again, I know, like I said, he's all banged up right now.
Oh, yeah.
What, 10 games in, it looks like he's got only 10 touchdowns. He's thrown 6 picks. I know he's fumbled multiple times. I don't know how many of those he's lost, but I know he's turned the ball over quite a few times this year. So it's definitely not his best year. I think
and
this
if
is
you
what
take that
is
Bengals game out of the mix, and again, he went off in the Bengals game. Oh my God, his staff. Did he have 3 touchdown passes against the Bengals?
He had a couple. I know that.
So you take those away, and he's probably got 8 or 7 touchdowns on the season, and
this is what is
could have 7 interceptions if he played another team but the Bengals. So
that's a good point. Yeah,
and I think
I don't know what it is, but
this is what his 4th season in the league.
Yeah, so 4 is where your rookie deal runs out. So this is he's on the last year here.
So it was his first year, and then last year were both solid. I think his second year he threw almost as many picks as he did touchdowns, and then obviously this year he's struggling with all the injuries and stuff. So it's it's the overall resume. I don't know. Would you feel comfortable signing him to a long-term deal? But on the flip side, like I said, what else is out there, whether it be through the draft or free agency? I mean, I don't know who's going to be available in the off season. I mean, unless you try to trade for somebody.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, who are you going to get that's any better? I don't think. Well, obviously, you kind of mentioned something that is another segue, which we'll get into, which would be, sure, if they could do something to secure Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah, that's one thing I thought of.
that
But
would be,
would Rodgers? Well, they've got some weapons there, so because like I said, would Rodgers want to go there? Being a California kid, you'd almost think he'd rather go out to the West Coast.
yeah, and I think he would, but now, Los Angeles is probably off the map
Yeah.
with Matthew Stafford. San Francisco, I wouldn't think with Garoppolo and the kid from North Dakota State that they would want to bring Aaron Rodgers in. But then
Yeah.
again, it's like, well, it's Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron, coming off of an MVP season, isn't having his best season this year either. So, then you start thinking in your head, oh, is it the decline? Tom Brady's an anomaly. Nobody is a Tom Brady.
No.
But to touch on Baker and kind of do this in an easy way, here's the way that I always look at it too. You almost have to have the number one quarterback in your division. So like Tom Brady, all those years in the AFC, what were they in the AFC East?
The East, I believe. Yeah.
Which sometimes with these conferences, it is the craziest thing. It's like they're not like the NFC East.
All the alignment,
I think has like Washington and all the, the Eastern teams, and then the Dallas Cowboys, and you can't get any further south. So I don't know how the heck that even came to be, but we're not going to get into that right now. Talking about in conference though, AFC North, who do you guys think is the best quarterback in the AFC North? Is it Baker?
Oh, heavens, no.
I'll tell you who it's not.
I mean, as much as I, love Joe and some of the flashes of brilliance that he's shown right now, I guess you gotta go just the overall package. You have to go with
Lamar.
Lamar, yeah. You have to go with Lamar. Just the arm's not bad. Obviously, he can move. Just the overall package. You have to go with Lamar right now, and who knows, maybe Joe. Hopefully, Joe will take him over at some point. But Joe's still young. He just finished technically his first full season. Like a month ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson is so dynamic, though, and again, I know I think most people, know him more for what he can do on the ground, but I think Lamar over the years he's become a pretty darn good passer as well. So he can do it on the ground, through the air. So yeah, I think it's got to be Lamar, and then for me, I would say Joe has to be second, because Ben, what is Ben? Probably 38, 39 something, and you can tell he's finally starting to slow down a little bit. So
yeah, I think Ben came out in the same draft class with our Carson Palmer. So
yeah,
Ben's been around a while.
So you're gonna go Lamar for me, Joe, and then we'll put Ben at third. I think I would trust Ben right now in a high pressure situation more than I would Baker. So
according to PFF, it's Joe, Lamar, Baker, and Ben. I agree with you. I think it's certainly Lamar.
Yeah.
Joe is getting up there though after finishing the first full season. I mean, Joe is I think he will be the number one guy. If the Bengals can keep him healthy, first pick of the draft, hopefully as an O lineman.
He just needs to clean up some of those. He's made a few mistakes here recently. Some of the picks he's thrown, which again, he is a young guy. He's young quarterback, so he'll get there. And I know everybody, says Justin Herbert. Herbert doesn't do this, that. They should have drafted Herbert. Well,
everybody wanted Tua. Let's not forget about that too. Justin Herbert.
You don't know,
believe me, I watched him in college, and I think anybody watching the show, again, unless you're an Oregon fan, when I heard that he was going to be the third prospect coming out of college, I was like, what? I mean, it's Joe and Tua, and then Justin Herbert third. Justin just did not look like an NFL quarterback to me. That's why I'm not an analyst or working in the NFL, because boy, was I wrong. He looks like he's going to be the best of the bunch, which pains me. I want to say it's going to be Joe, but I will say, though, Justin has let's take it here. Justin Herbert last year had, I think, the worst line in football and had a fantastic season. His line improved this year. substantially, and he's having another great season. Joe's got better as well. And Joe's having a better season. But yeah, Justin Herbert he's phenomenal. But Joe, they just got to keep him upright. They got to keep that pressure off of him. So, but yes, I would agree. It's Lamar 1, Joe 2. So right there shows you if Cleveland's going to compete, you can do it with a third best quarterback. Right now it's a juggle between Ben and Baker. But, you've got to have an absolute dominant defense, which on paper, I thought they did. It hasn't really proved out that way in the season so far. The record certainly doesn't indicate it. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I guess, we can throw out free opinions here and it doesn't count and then cost us anything, but I just don't see him as somebody you're going to get to the Super Bowl with. And that should be your end goal. Like with the Bengals, our goal has always been selling tickets and just getting people in the seats, even if we're 0-16, and that's garbage. You're out there to win and to win a Super Bowl, or just sell the team if that's not what you want to do, if that's not your goal. So,
I was gonna say, and then another issue with Joe, are the fans gonna want him, or not Joe, but Baker. Sorry, with Baker, the fans gonna want him back because was it just last week in a press conference? I guess they asked him about getting booed at home, and he basically said, "I don't care. They can boo me, whatever."
And according to those commercials, he lives there, so they're actually booing him in his own house.
Yeah,
he wakes up and gets coffee and lives in the stadium, which is interesting. I know Chad Ochocinco did that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been getting booed at home recently, and basically just kind of blew it off. Said, "Hey, I don't care. Let them do whatever." Essentially. And those kind of comments, I don't think are going to help his cause too much. So, yeah, that's a thing too. Are the fans going to want him back? I mean, ultimately, it's if he wins, the fans are going to love him. If he loses, they're not. It's as we know, it comes down to wins and losses. You could
God tonight is not a good one for him because tonight they got to travel to Baltimore to play the 7-3 Ravens, and the Bengals went in there and just had the game of a lifetime and decimated the Ravens. I have a feeling when the Ravens come here, it's going to be probably a different story, but we will see.
Yeah, that's funny when the Bengals dominated Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and then on the flip side got dominated by Baker. So that shows you right there. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Why they can't game plan the other way Baker is beyond me. All you got to do is watch footage from the other teams and see what they're doing. But oh well. I think that we've made ourselves a good segue here, staying in the AFC North. We've talked about the third and fourth quarterback as kind of a toss-up between Ben and Baker. Now, if I'm in one game right now, it's Ben. If you have a career, obviously you'd go with Baker. But speaking of Ben, I think he's in the same situation. I believe he's on a 1-year deal. So what do you do with Ben? Do you come back another season with Ben, who just seems beat up and he's really slowed down? I kept, I have a buddy of mine who's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I kept saying, you guys are in the perfect position to draft this kid. He wasn't one of the big names, or at least not to non-college football people, but Kyle Trask. He was on pace to beat Joe Burrow's records, quarterback from Florida. And they went with Najee Harris, which turned out to be a hell of a pick. Don't get me wrong, but and I forget exactly where Kyle went. I know the Buccaneers got him. Actually, let's take a look here. So let's see. So 2020 NFL draft. What if I can, let's see here. Let's try something a little different. This is our first live show, by the way. If anybody's watching, if you're like, oh, the aesthetics aren't that great. Do these guys know what they're doing? We don't really at this point. This is the first live show. I'm going to see if I can share my screen.
What we did, though, is, we're doing this live, first time off the cuff. We were trying to decide before we went live. One of the three of us, I'm not going to mention, got mad and said, forget it. We'll do it live. And we just started it.
So here we go. Oh, wait, this is the season before. Let's see if we can just change this to a 1. And we can. So yes, Trevor Lawrence, we had the run on quarterbacks there, and we got our Jamar Chase, which was a fantastic pick. You know, as I said, in this season, in terms of a Bengals fan, you got to get offensive linemen. Hey, good morning. I appreciate you guys stopping by. But we're kind of talking a little Steelers talk here, even though we're Bengals fans. So with the 24th pick, they took Najee. We're talking about the future of Ben Roethlisberger. I'm assuming this is his last season. So let's see, when did Kyle Trask go? And this was just my opinion. I was like, man, this kid's really good. So he was the very last pick in the second round. So Pittsburgh went with a tight end. And it not even didn't have to be Kyle Trask, but you know, why they didn't take a quarterback in that second round is I don't know, kind of a head scratcher. And they're a heck of an organization. I mean, they're so well run. They could develop a young guy like Kyle. But anyway, they put themselves in a heck of a predicament here. I don't know what they're going to do. We'll stop sharing what they're going to do with next season, because Ben is, what is it? What do they say? Long in the tooth.
Oh, yeah.
Ben he is beat up and he's seen better days. So, and as I mentioned, the quarterback draft class is not tremendous. I've even heard talk of Desmond Ridder to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that's going to happen. If anybody can find a diamond in the rough, it's going to be Pittsburgh, and they'll have the next guy for 15 years that'll be dominant. But it's just interesting. It is interesting. I feel like they made a mistake, which we like as a Bengals fan. I love that I feel they made a mistake in this last draft by not taking a quarterback, because it was so quarterback rich. I mean, even 1 through 6, 1 through 7, there was tons of talent there. So
I don't know. Maybe they're planning on sticking. I mean, because last year, Ben, looking at his numbers here, threw 33 touchdowns to only 10 picks. So he had a heck of a season last year. This year's numbers are still good. The touchdown to INT is 13-4. So he's not really.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I was just going to say, again, using PFF here. And we went through and we said, Baker Mayfield is 26th in PFF. They only have, 38 quarterbacks qualified to be ranked in PFF. And out of the 38 quarterbacks, 38 is Mike White of the Jets, who destroyed the Bengals somehow. Colt McCoy of the Cardinals, which is interesting. I thought he was doing pretty good, and then 36 is Ben. So, I mean, he is just a bottom feeder in terms of PFF. I don't know
how. Like I said, he 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. I mean, I know the numbers aren't real impressive, 20 touchdowns, whatever, but I don't know if he's not throwing the ball as much, or, I mean, it looked like he had fumbled 6 times, but so maybe he swapped out the picks for the fumbles. But as far as the picks go, those are down. So it looks like he's having a decent season. The numbers aren't real gaudy or anything, but I don't know. Do you stick with him one more year, depending on what's going to come out of the draft next year, or do you go with Mason Rudolph, who's looked?
I think if you go with Mason Rudolph, you're
Mason,
kind of, waving the white flag.
I mean, he's looked okay. I mean,
he has, but again, you're competing in a division with, even if you look at Baker, who Baker would be better than him. Certainly Joe and Lamar are better than him. You got the 4th best quarterback. How are you going to compete? So, and let's look at it this way. If Ben Roethlisberger is the 36th PFF quarterback out of 38, quarterbacks, he isn't going to miraculously get better next year.
Yeah.
He might be able to stay even, or he's going to get worse simply because of age. So,
I'm sure people said the same thing about Tom Brady a couple years back. He may have had an off season here or there and picked himself up, and look at him. He's number 1 on the list there. So, but like you said, he's kind of an anomaly. There ain't a whole lot of Tom Brady's out there.
Well, exactly. You can't use Tom as the, but we had a question here, just some thoughts on the Vikings, which is interesting because the first game of the season, when I kind of was looking at the Bengals schedule, I, thought to myself, okay, well, the Vikings win for the Bengals. Week 2, Bears win for the Bengals. I underestimated the Vikings. The Bengals, for us as a fan base, we've gone through, pretty much you look at it this way: as a Vikings fan, any other team, unless you're a fan of Detroit, the Jets, or the Bengals, you can't feel our pain. I mean, we normally have nothing to look forward to. Joe Burrow, thank you, Andy Dalton. No offense, Mike, for having a pitiful season at the helm when he did. And it just happened to be the year that Joe Burrow was coming out. It worked like the stars aligned for the Bengals to get him. I don't think they appreciate him as much as they should because, we're still not getting him offensive line help. Although we did go to the Vikings and we plucked Riley Reef away. But
thought you meant Andy when you said we don't appreciate him, the man that took us to more playoff appearances than any quarterback in Bengals history.
Which is true, though.
Well, and actually,
thank you, Andy.
Yeah, and Andy, I've always put Kirk Cousins on the plane with Andy. That's kind of what I thought. Again, I'm wrong. Kirk Cousins is number 2 PFF quarterback behind Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a hell of a quarterback. I mean, they've got a lot of really good pieces in Minnesota.
Yeah, they do.
They've got our coach who, believe me, when we, had Marvin Lewis way too long, I kept saying, this Mike Zimmer guy is a star. Yeah. Why don't we fire Marvin Lewis and promote him to head coach? We didn't. So Minnesota, you got a hell of a coach there. I don't know how you guys feel about him. And another interesting story, or an interesting sidebar with Minnesota. We did an interview many, many months ago with a former professional wrestler named Nikita Koloff on the show here. And he's a big Minnesota Vikings fan. And that actually was before the first game of the season. And I made Nikita promise that if the Minnesota Vikings won the game, that we would donate to his charity. And if the Bengals won, he had to come back on our show. So I haven't, Nikita, if you're watching, we're going to call on you here at some point. We'll do something wrestling related for that show, although it could be NFL. He knows his Vikings. So, but yeah, the Minnesota Vikings, and let's see here.
I mean, the Vikings, like I said, have a heck of a team. I mean,
oh yeah, they do. You kidding me? Justin Jefferson, Dalvin.
Dalvin Cook's a beast. Yeah, they got a heck of a team.
Oh
there.
Yeah, the pieces are phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, just
Adam
start
Thielen.
off there with an upper echelon quarterback, an upper echelon running back, and an upper echelon wide receiver.
And when you say the receiver, you're talking about Jefferson.
Justin. Oh my God.
Because Adam Thielen's a beast as well. Let's not forget about him. So
exactly. So
they got a heck of a nucleus there.
One thing that I think's interesting then, since we're talking about Minnesota and the NFC, this year the NFC is dominant. The top teams are definitely in the past, it's traditionally been the AFC. It's like, okay, this is the team or the teams that are going to go to the Super Bowl, probably win. But this year, I mean, you've got Arizona and Green Bay and Tampa Bay. And so you can throw some other AFC teams in there. Kansas City starting to play, good now, but
that's what's funny. The AFC is so wide open. I mean, the Bengals just like 3-4 weeks ago were statistically the top team in the AFC, the entire AFC, and they lost to the Jets, and was it the Cleveland game, and dropped to 4th in the division. They went from 1st in the entire conference to last in the division with 2 losses. So a couple wins and some losses for some of the top teams. They could easily be at the top of the AFC again. So it's
and actually
wide open year.
That's the exact same thing. So just staying with the Vikings for a minute here. I see that, and it's how we were with Marvin Lewis. So as a Vikings fan, you watch every game, more than these analysts on TV that look at the highlights and that. And if Mike Zimmer is doing the job that he should be doing. Maybe it is time for a change. I thought we held on to Marvin Lewis probably 5 or 6 years longer than we should have.
Yeah.
I quit watching the Bengals. The final 3 seasons of Marvin Lewis's tenure here, I quit watching. I couldn't do it. Again, no offense to Mike, but I said until they get rid of Andy Dalton and Marvin Lewis, I'm not watching the Bengals.
Tom hated playoff football.
Yeah, losing playoff football, I despise. If you're going to get there, at least win a game when you get 5 attempts, for God's sakes. But with the Vikings here today, you've got a winnable game over the 49ers. In Green Bay, I do the little, or actually I just started doing that thing on Fox where you try to win Terry Bradshaw's money. And one of the games you could pick was the Rams and the Packers. And I picked the Rams, even though it's at the Packers. So if that does come true, then the Vikings are just one game out of first place. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, but I can see what you guys are saying with Mike Zimmer. We had the same thing with the idiot coach that we had. I'm not even going to say his name. It makes me sick. But and you see how good he is. Nobody else wanted him. But
Yeah.
you know, they're always kind of there. But you guys know in Minnesota, you've got too much talent. So why aren't you winning more? You guys were probably disgusted when you lost to the Bengals. We were so joyful that, oh my God, we started the season off with a win. And I'm sure you guys were heartbroken. You went into the game saying, well, they better beat the Bengals because it's the Bengals.
Probably.
That's understandable. So, all right. Let's take a look here. Let's see. I got a bunch of tabs open here. And we're about to hit 10 o'clock for our first live show here. And being a football talk, we, started off, I guess, the first 30 minutes with college. We wanted to end with NFL. We won't be doing any USFL talk, but, I don't know how much longer we'll go here. But it's been a different thing. I appreciate you guys tuning in, the people that have stopped in periodically. Thank you so much. And if we keep doing something like this, I'm sure, it's hard when you just jump in and do something like this that's a little bit different from the norm. People don't know you're going to do it, and they don't know who we are. And what do these guys know about football? Well, like I mentioned earlier, we're just kind of like your coworkers. We know enough to be dangerous, and we can talk to you about it and give you our opinion, and it's somewhat educated, but we're certainly not going to be getting a job with Fox or ESPN anytime soon.
This is water cooler talk here, basically.
Exactly. Yep. So let's see here. So week 12 of the NFL season, we've already had the Bears, and Andy Dalton barely beat a pitiful Lions team who, God bless you folks in Detroit. The Raiders bounced back a little bit and upset the Cowboys. And we had the Bills just dominate the Saints. So on tap today, we have the Bengals and the Steelers. I just can't imagine the Steelers beating the Bengals at home. Well, let me say I can't imagine it. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think I'm going to run through these games. You guys can jump in if there's, something you want to say, of course, but I see the Bengals winning that. We have the Dolphins and the Panthers. I think that was another one of the Fox games to get Terry Bradshaw's money. I picked the Dolphins in that one, so we'll see what happens. Giants and the Eagles. I go, Daniel Jones versus Jalen Hurts. I'm going to go with the Eagles on that one. Titans, Patriots. Titans, when they lost Derrick Henry, I just thought the season was over. Obviously, they've found a way around that, but Patriots are just on fire, which, again, we're talking about the college football playoff earlier, and the same team's always in it. Oh, my God, the Patriots.
Yep.
Jesus. I get tired of seeing them. They're always good. Falcons, Jaguars. That is probably not going to get the highest ratings of a game there. I guess you got to go with the Falcons in that game. Buccaneers, Colts. That could be a good game, but I'm never going to pick against Tom Brady.
No.
Jets and Texans. Whoo, that's a rough one there. That's another. I don't know.
It's woeful, unfortunately.
Chargers, Broncos. Justin Herbert. Teddy Bridgewater is no slouch.
Oh,
I know the Bengals still play both teams here later in the season, but you got to go with the young kid there, Justin Herbert, and the Chargers. Vikings, 49ers. As we kind of touched on a little bit ago, I'm going to go with the Vikings in that one, even though it's in San Francisco. Rams, Packers, I already mentioned with that one. I'm going to go with the Rams. Browns and Ravens. I think the Ravens are a hideous matchup for the Browns because the strength of the Browns of the edge rushers. And if you come and loop around Lamar, he's gone. So, and then with the Ravens, I mean, they've always got a pretty staunch defense. Stopping Chubb is, easier said than done, and getting their second running back, and I don't know exactly what kind of condition he is in, Kareem Hunt, but I don't know. I just see the Ravens in that one at home. I think the Browns are going to fall again. Ooh, poor Baker's really going to be getting some heat. And then the last game of this week, we have Seattle, Washington. Yeah, Russell Wilson and Seattle in that one. So, all right. Well, I think for our first attempt at a live show, or a live sports show, if you will, this will be a learning experience for us. It was kind of fun just chatting. This is, again, normally not what we do. Normally we have a tournament format to our topics, and we probably could do that with NFL. We could work out some things. But anyway, do you guys have anything in closing, or we'll go ahead and end this? And I got to go get a coffee refill.
No, I mean, it was fun. We just did this kind of off the cuff. We didn't have any specific topics. We just said, we're going to talk college football, which we did for the first, 20 some minutes, then jump into the NFL. So if you guys like this format, we can do it again and just off the cuff, or, if there's something specific, we could kind of format it in a certain way. Certainly, we're open for feedback, but it has been fun.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. And I again appreciate the viewers that stopped by. That was very nice of you guys. To reiterate what Marty said, this was just off the cuff. We're like, you know what, let's just try something new. We normally are just recording a podcast at 9:00, and then we do the editing and all that stuff. But we've never done one live, at least not in this genre, not in sports. We haven't done anything live. So it was interesting. It was fun. It saves us from the editing. So now it's just live on YouTube. So that's a big thing as well. So, all right. Well, again, thank you, everybody. I guess I should throw this out, even though it was live. If you made it this far, please consider giving a thumbs up to the video and subscribing to the channel. In the comments, let us know if this was a format you would like to see. We could make it something regular, so you guys know when we go live, and you could get more questions. And when we get a certain genre, like if we kind of kept going with football until the end of the seasons, meaning college and professional, we like to throw in giveaways too. So we could do that too if we stayed in this genre. So just let us know in the comments. Good or bad, we'll take it. But we're out of here. I need coffee. Now we have some recording to do on some other podcast stuff. So we're going to call this. Then we'll meet back here in a few minutes and we'll start on something else, but we won't be live. It'll be edited footage that will be released. Have a fantastic Sunday, everybody. Enjoy football today. And who knows, we may see you next week if we do this again. Let us know if we should, or if you don't ever want to see us again. Let us know that too. Tell us to get the hell off the air. That's all right. All right. Thanks, guys. See ya.